establishing the position of Krishna so that we get it. Those of us sitting in the material world thinking that we're going to be lording it over, so we get it. That's the whole point here. And therefore, then we told what to do also. The very last sentence we wrote here, that was written here. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Now, within this, Sri Vyasadeva, after he was told by Naradaji, Vyasadeva, as wonderful a work as you've done, talking about all the fruitive things that you can obtain by doing this and that and that and that and that and that, all written in the Vedas, you're not happy. And we might, I'm sure, have experienced in our own lives. When we are not close to Krishna consciousness in terms of even what we have been instructed to do, we're not happy. We're not going to be. We're not happy because that's Krishna's mercy. You get away from me, he says he rewards accordingly. So you get away from me, he gets away from you. And he's a source of happiness, so he gets away from you. You can't be happy. You can try to do all kinds of material things, but it only satisfies your senses. And then after a short while, it's still not right. It's still not right. You have to go to Krishna. So then I remember something my Guru Maharaj told me about Chaitanya Maharaj. It says, sometimes we're very happy and sometimes we're not. Emotions go back and forth sometimes. So he said, think about the time that you're happiest. And everybody can do that. Think about the time that you're happiest. What were you doing? What were you doing? You'll find out as a devotee. Now, this is not a question for commies. Get them. They can't answer that question properly. But a person that's putting their heart to Krishna, believes in Krishna, doesn't even have to be initiated, but just, the faith is there in Krishna. If you have to answer that question, you realize that there were certain specific things that you were doing in devotional service, and you were excited about it, and that's what made you happy. I can challenge everybody. You can look back at this and think you realize there was something you were doing. Either the times that you were doing some things was improved, especially using the Brahma Muhurta hour, the 4 to 6, the 3 o'clock to 6, especially that time, if you put more spiritual things into it, you were just automatically happier. Now, Krishna also helps us. He told us he will. The condition is, the more we surrender, then the help comes. The more we try to do things on our own, we'll find that we are fighting the material nature. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's called in economics diminishing returns. You try hard, but you don't get much from it. So the Lord is, of course, the pastime is put in right away. It's interesting. It's kind of gets a little pointing at the 10th canto, because he said, "Oh, my Lord Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva." Now, son of Vasudeva starts the whole thing. Vasudeva and Devaki. Then it caused Kansa and all that, and how this whole pastime, the marriage between Vasudeva and Devaki, and the voice that was heard, Kamsa, you're such a fool, the 8th child of this particular couple, son, is going to be the cause of your death. So Vasudeva is mentioned. O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. This is one of the 9 processes, very important process. And it reminds me of certain things that used to happen when I was a Girinagri in the 90s, early 90s. So many of the Matatis that came to Girinagri, they started families. My wife was also one of them. So for a while, we had about 4 or 5 pregnancies, 5 or 6 children came. One was twins. And so all of these born obviously right into the Dham, right? Born at the Dham. So what else? They've been hearing kirtans, bhajans in the womb. They were born immediately. They could get around. Immediately they were in the temple. Even as babies, they were named in the temple and so on. Now, why did I bring that up? Well, there's a certain picture that came to mind. And that's his personal thing, but I don't mind sharing it. I always loved it because the devotees, we get to the temple, the door, we immediately offer obeisances. That's just, we know to do that. So we all do that. As you know, Vyasadeva said, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. But to see these little cute girls and boys, as small as they are, and they also go down and offer obeisance, it's the cutest thing. I should have taken pictures of it, that they all are in that mindset of Krishna consciousness because they were born into it. They are most fortunate. Not like some of us, some of you were, also in there being from India, but some of us, we had to kind of start different continents and then come to Krishna consciousness by the mercy of the Lord. But we are all of our obeisances. The next point, I meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, because he's the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam. Lord Brahma says in Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, text 1, I think, yeah. So, he is the cause of creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. So they bring it here to the material world. The spiritual world, that's from Lord Balaram, that doesn't change. But here, there's creation, there's sustenance, and destruction. In one sense, it's also continuous. The material world is either in the body of Mahavishnu or outside the body of Mahavishnu, but it's always there though. It's somewhere, either in or out. As is known as Rupa Swami likes to say, the material world, now you see it, now you don't. Of course, our life is so short, we see it all the time. We don't do that, you don't. We leave the body before the universes go back to the pores of Mahavishnu. But this is all creation of the portion of Krishna. The first expansion of Krishna is Balaram. Then Balaram expands to the Chaturvyuha, the four forms, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, and Padumya. And as been explained, they also expand to Narayan, Lord of Vaikuntha. Then from him, the second Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, and Padumya. And from the Sankarshan comes Mahavishnu, who is the creator of the unmanifested form of material energy. And then he expands to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And then from the navel of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu comes Lord Brahma. And Brahma goes through meditation because Brahma is alone. At least he thinks he's alone. He meditates. The Lord helps him. He goes through tapasya. And then the way in which the varieties are supposed to come for each universe belong to, that's Lord Brahma is in charge of, that's explained to him through his heart. Where the soul is, by the way, through his heart, and then he creates. Then the Lord sustains, and of course, Lord Shiva is part of, Lord Shiva comes from Lord Brahma, but then he's also charged with the destructive part. So everything is connected to Krishna. Everything is connected to Krishna. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that Sri Vyasadeva directly asserts that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and all others are his direct or indirect plenary expansions or portions of the portion. Everybody else is even connected to Krishna, but it's a portion of the portion, and we are very minute, very, very, very minute portions of the portion. So we'll take a few things here and there as with your permission and guidance from the Parampara Guru Maharaj. So the history of Srimad Bhagvatam is also very glorious. It was compiled by Sri Vyasadeva when he had attained maturity in transcendental knowledge, and he wrote this under the instructions of Sri Naradaji. The texts that are coming will explain the details of it. The history of Srimad Bhagvatam, we know the tail end of it was when Maharaj Pariksit was leaving in 7 days after he got cursed by Shri, the son of Shamakrishi, that sage that was in meditation. Then he used his last days to hear the Srimad Bhagvatam when he went to do the meditation in the banks of the Ganga River. Now, That teaches us a lesson. Many of us don't know when we're going to leave. The overwhelming majority of us don't know when we're going to leave the body. So we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, so that we are in the mindset of Krishna and Krishna consciousness and activities in Krishna. But also, then when we get ready to leave the body, sometimes death comes, it looks like it is coming. Sometimes we don't want to admit it. But especially when there's sickness, it gets to a point where the person has to accept, all right, so they're going to go. Mm-hmm. Then arrangements are made. Devotees are very helpful in that situation, trying to help the person to remember Krishna. But sometimes this situation comes unexpectedly too. Mm-hmm. Death can sometimes, as they say, blindside you. It occurs, then you don't know that it's even coming. Next thing you know, and Maharaj described this, a person that suddenly gets killed, especially if they are non-devotee, the first thing that happens is they get bewildered. That's the first thing that happens. They get bewildered because they can still work with their senses. Not the senses that they were normally working with the physical body, but the subtle body can actually help so many things. Mind intelligence are there. The mind controls the senses. So it's been explained, we won't get into great detail about it, but there have been several videos that have been made and put even on YouTube that there was, and I'll say just one of it, and then come back to this. There's a man that traveled with his wife. They went to Paris, France. So it's here, this, and this earth, that is. So the man got sick, badly sick. They called for help, took him to the hospital. Doctors was in the evening, doctors coming. The very next day, no doctor. The man got worse. His wife was very, very, very much in anxiety. The man finally left the body. But the interesting thing was, he said he was in pain. Later on, this is a near-death experience. He came back and talked about it. He said he was in pain a lot before the actual transition. Then all of a sudden, he felt no pain. He saw his wife there, so he started talking to his wife. The only thing is, his wife was crying and was not paying him any attention. So after a while, he was starting to get upset with her. I mean, just literally speaking to her ear, and she wouldn't even turn and look at him. And so, what's going on? Then a thought occurred to him. Look at the bed. Then he saw a figure on the bed that looked like the body he was using. That's when it occurred to him, oh, so that's what death is. That's what death is. So I'm on a different plane, totally different from where my wife is at now. That's why he can't hear me. She can't hear me. So he had to come to that. So he got bewildered. And then, of course, at that, he went through the corridor. He saw the nurses. He was in the hospital. And then next thing you know, there were other people that have come to meet him. And then he went right through the walls. And then they were up in a different arena altogether. Now, he describes what happens and how he came back. But to mention one thing about it is, when they meet glorious personality, some of them did, in fact, meet people like that, and they were told to turn back. They were told to live the very thing that we are supposed to be living out as our aim, love of Godhead. They all talked about love. They all talked about learn to be loving, learn to be loving, learn to be loving. So Krishna Prema is a very, very important aim that we should be about. Now back to this. Sri Vyasadeva was not satisfied because he had written most of Karmakandic stuff. And that's why Narada had to advise him. Now, we also have been told, and also the good reason why this particular yatra has started, Bhavatam 111. The transcendental activities are described in the Sriimad Bhagavatam's 10th canto. That's the Lord's face. But we have to start from the lotus feet of the Lord, which is Canto 1 and Chapter 1 and Text 1, so wonderfully appropriately written after Vyasadeva got the instructions from Naradaji, right about the pastimes of the Lord. He wrote about how to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then to the pastimes in the 10th canto. So one must proceed gradually from the first canto, finish the first 9 cantos, and then go to the 10th canto. Now, we develop knowledge like that. And the knowledge puts us in the proper mindset. And the greatest and the most important property of the proper mindset is humility. It's extremely important because humility is the antidote for false ego. And if our egos are too high, the humility won't play much into our lives. Now, if it doesn't, we got problems. We got all kinds of problems because we have come to the material world wanting to be the Lord's. Now, if we want to control, how much humility is there with somebody who wants to control? Only a servant can be humble. So the controller, the ones that are the Raja Rishis, the kings, but also devotees, they do things, they do in fact give out situations, they give out in terms of employment, in terms of things that has to be done, but they don't make you feel that they're controlling your life. That's the difference. That's the difference. So humility is a few points that we want to talk about and probably end with that. We should sincerely pray to our guru or to Srila Prabhupada for help with our weaknesses. Just by admitting that we are weak shows humility. There's always room for improvement in everybody's spiritual life. So the other point also is to not stop serving because of inconvenience, because it will come. We should look at inconvenience as tests. As tests. Are you going to continue because this is happening, or are you going to use that as an excuse not to continue serving the devotees, not to continue serving Krishna, not to continue with the deity service? We should never stop serving due to inconvenience. We should go through inconvenience to serve devotees and the spiritual master, because that would cause Krishna to be more merciful to us and purify us from our faults. We should also serve with very high quality. The Prabhupada said, everything to be done should be done in first class. So finally, stop criticizing. And the last thing is our prayer. The greatest and most humble prayer to Guru and Gauranga is to ask them to run our lives. And if we do that every day, move our thoughts and stuff out of the way and have the Lord take over our minds and help us every day through our lives. The morning, if we pray like that, we will naturally be humble, because humility is inbuilt, it's built into Krishna consciousness. So if we do that, we're going to be humble. Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, first canto, first chapter, first text. I meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he is the absolute truth. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Jai. Glory to Srila Prabhupada. So, do you want to charge it, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Wow.
Hare Krishna.
You, I wasn't sure how covering covering the first text of the first canto and the first chapter. Such nectar and so complete. You explained perfectly, as Srila Prabhupada has done perfectly as well. The purport, everything was, each of those paragraphs, everything was just so condensed and so packed in there, and everything was contained in there. Very nice. I want to see time. We won't go too late. Maybe if somebody has a question, we can take one or two. It looks like we got one in the
chat section.
If you want to read that, if you see that.
Yeah. So how do we, okay, it went off. Okay. How do we understand UFOs, extraterrestrial life, aliens, through Srimad Bhagvatam lens? Hare Krishna. Very good question. There are 8,400,000 types of bodies that the soul can get in. The aliens also are part of the 8,400,000 bodies. Some of them are close to the way we look, and even those in the higher planetary systems, the higher planets, the heavenly planets, they are also categorized under the human, the 400,000. So the 400,000 types of human beings are not sitting on one universe only, certainly not one planet, so they are all over. So they have different material capabilities. And so the important thing though is we are fortunate to be in a planet at this time in Kali Yuga that life is short. 100 years is one of the shortest. So these bodies are to be used in Krishna consciousness. But I've got to tell you something else though. Since UFOs have been mentioned, and this is also heard by Darshan, actually given by Bhaktisiddhanta Swami. Not only are the heavenly planets the ones that, of course, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is there, or the mode of worship of Krishna is there, depending on what yuga that they're in. There are some that visit this place meaning this earthly area. Some of them are also devotees. Now, not heard that I would never have believed it, but some of them are devotees. And some of them chant the same Hare Krishna mantra we chant. So we're not alone. Of course, scientists know that we're not alone. But yeah, UFOs, we said unidentified flying objects because of different machines that they use in flying and so on. Yes, that's all there. We don't know the details of the science that they have. But of course, as you go up higher, the intelligence actually, the mind and the capabilities improve. That's also there. All the way up to subtle and Lord Brahmaloka, Satyaloka, the subtle place, even the greater activity there. So that's there. That's as far as I'm going to go with describing the UFOs. But yeah, we're not the only ones that chant, though. You're not the only ones that chant. Hare Krishna.
Any other questions? Other Vinjavali, please.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for the whole Bhagavatam essence you gave it today. For the first chapter, there's a lot of things we need to know. And he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, absolute truth. That is the essence of that. So it's really amazing. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Jai. You're welcome. And there are those in the chat also saying, thank you very much for detailed explanation. The credit goes to my spiritual master and to Shri Prabhupada. So I'm accepting on their behalf. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jai.
Mother Vatsala?
Thank you very much. My humble pranam. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Prabhu. We don't need to go further. I think the first canto, first verse tells it all.
Yeah.
So if we believe in Krishna and he is the basis of the life, we don't need to go anything. This is one thing that you remember in life that makes it all. Thank you very much. So there is no need to read anything more. It should be incorporated into the mind, body, soul, and in our heart. Then everything becomes perfect. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So another way of saying it is, we meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he is the absolute truth.
Yes.
Now, with the meditation, you certainly are free to read some things too. They have been written after all. But the point you're making is, those are all details describing the very thing that's talked about in the first chapter, in the first text. And that definitely I agree with, without a doubt, without a doubt. After you hear everything in order, what would you do but what would you not do but meditate? You're going to have to meditate on the Supreme Personality of God here, because they all talk about him, all of them. Hare Krishna. Yeah, that's your point.
Thank you. Thanks a million. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Any other questions, comments?
Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he he's indicated that there are higher spiritual subject matters to be derived kind of towards the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we were approaching some of those as we were going through, and even just into the inner life of Krishna and how he executed. And now we're going back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So how do we, I guess, just mentally kind of prepare ourselves, I guess even just with regards to patience, even to knowing that there's something out there, something that would be greater, but we're not there yet to get it. How should we think of this? We don't want to try to jump over our qualification.
Yeah.
Understand where we are.
Well, it begins from the heart. Then I say that because Srila Prabhupada was asked a question about this. Yeah, I remember the video of it too, so it was wonderful. You could see his reaction and all of that to that. So that's what comes to mind that we're going to use to answer this question. He was asked a question kind of connected to yours. So how long does it take for a person to be Krishna conscious? He says, in 1 minute. You open his eyes. 1 minute. You do 4 things. Think about me, become my devotee, offer obeisance to me, worship me. You do the 4 things. Next, 1866. Sabadama Parityaja, Mamekam Sharanam Vaja, Ham Sam Sava Papevyo, Mokshaim Shami Masuchaha. Mokshaim Shami Masuchaha. He says, religions don't take you that far. If you can get out of the material world, you go to higher planets if you do it well. So abandon them and surrender to me. So if you surrender to him, what are you going to be? You're going to think of him. You're going to have this devotee. He's going to be a servant. That's a devotee. You're going to worship him. The person you surrender to, you're going to worship. And you also offer obeisance. That's also another form of surrender. So he connected both of these and says, how long does it take to do that? Mentally, 1 minute, right? So what it takes is our process of purification, because we have been in the material world a long time, and some things are there. Sometimes, like Mataji was saying, sometimes you have to defend yourself. Yes, that's there. But also some other duties will tell you that if you help more people, Krishna helps you. That's also there. Okay, yeah. So sometimes you have to say things to people want to take advantage of you. Of course, you have to stand up for yourself. That's there. Because Krishna will give you the intelligence to stand up for yourself without being offensive. But the main thing, as Magumad is stressing, is that we need to put our attention more on serving others. If you serve others, then Krishna serves you more. And Krishna can do a much better job handling our lives than we can handling our own lives. So both are there. There has to be some balance. That's the point we really want to make. But yeah, Krishna consciousness, you could just get to that in a minute. Therefore, to answer your point directly then, it doesn't take long for the mind to focus on Krishna. Once you're convinced about Krishna, it doesn't take long at all for the mind to be focused on Krishna. The question is to do it every day. To do it every day with Maya bringing the tests, but today, every time when it's, the weather has done this, so many things. We just put all of that to the side. Yes, it's there. But Krishna consciousness, there's nothing stopping me from doing the Bhakti Yoga activity. So we always have to keep plugging in. And of course, associating with devotees remind us about what to do. Associating with devotees actually helps us a lot. And hearing also helps us, because that's where the solutions come to the tests that Maya gives us. The solutions come from there, from hearing the lectures. Krishna arranges for the answers to come through there, and devotees remind us to stay with the process. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Thank you, Parikshit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Krishna's mercy. Guru's mercy.
So we can conclude here. We will continue tomorrow with text number 2. Another nectarian verse. And please share. This is a wonderful time to share any devotees you know that you feel may benefit from these classes. This is kind of jumping in at the very beginning. It's a nice.
That reminds me, Prabhu, charging the cell phone all the time. Otherwise, it won't remind us everything. So every time it goes charge, we have to charge it again. It will tell us what to do. So I remember like that. I thought, so if it's no charge, cell phone, it's not useless.
Yeah.
So our mind is also same thing. It has to charge.
Yes.
Charge every time.
And that's the best charging, huh? Charging with Krishna consciousness.
Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. We hope to see you also tonight, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Just a reminder. And everybody, sometimes you get thrown off because of all the activities, but back to normal schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Bhagavad Gita happy hour, and then in the morning we hope to see you as we journey through the beginning of the Sriimad Bhagvatam.
Yeah. Last night the play was very good, Drona. I enjoyed.
Thank you.
That was fantastic. This little small play, but it was very good.
We did what we could. It was, I'm glad you could hear it because you never know how it comes across over the medium. But
nicely done. Very well put together. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna. I love your humbly yours. What did you have humbly yours? It reminds me of humility all the time, but that's why I'm looking at it.
Prabhuji, one small clarification to you as well from Dronacharya Prabhu. So after 10th canto, 13th chapter, we come back to the first canto, first chapter, first verse, and we are going from there. So is it because of 10th canto, 13th chapter till 13th chapter, Prabhupada Ji Maharaj given commentary, after that his disciples are given, so we are more interested in Prabhupada Ji Maharaj commentary. What was the reason that we came back to the first canto?
Yes, so that was one of the reasons. We consulted with some of the senior devotees in our community, Srila Prabhupada disciples, several of them, and we decided that the value of hearing Srila Prabhupada's purports is extremely valuable, especially to many of us that are in the beginning stages of Krishna consciousness. So that was one reason. The other reason was that as Srila Prabhupada described in this purport, that if you jump ahead to the 10th canto, you run the risk of not understanding all the information about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is provided in the first 9 cantos that helps you prepare to not take Krishna cheaply. So when we started this Sangha back in about a year ago online, we used to do classes at the temple, but there'd only be about 3 or 4 of us. It was, self, Davaneshwari, Mother Sudevi, a couple of devotees in the temple kind of come, and we had a small little group. A couple of people would come here and there at different times.
Group is big.
4 or 5 or 6. It was a much more intimate group. But then when people started joining, which is wonderful, we were able to use this platform. Now that we have it, we know that we can reach a lot more people. Much better way of connecting in the morning. We also realized a lot of people were jumping in right at the 10th canto. So, and they didn't really get, and for some people, wow, this is amazing, wow, and there is no wrong, I don't think, it's just like they say, like a mango, you bite into it, whether you bite in from the bottom or the side, it's all good, it's juicy. But to have this, to go back, it seemed like the perfect time. And then also the way that we ended it, sometimes things are just kind of, arranged in such a way. We ended the 13th chapter last Thursday. It was Gaur Purnima was coming up. Gaur Purnima is also kind of the beginning of the Vaishnava calendar. So it's like a new year we're starting. So it all kind of like lined up, and we just said, this is Krishna's arrangement. we feel that this is what we're doing.
Got
So we are thinking, because we do want to continue, a lot of us were very attracted to these pastimes, and we want to hear more about the prayers of Lord Brahma to Krishna. So we're trying to come up with a program maybe where we can continue reading Krishna book. Srila Prabhupada, is translated. So we're trying to come up with a program where we can continue these readings as well. But
Thank you.
That was the reason.
nice.
Yeah, I got the same question. I was wondering why we are going back. Thank you very much for explaining to me too. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, it helps.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, now I also understand.
Yes. Yeah, everybody understood that point.
Yeah.
Yes.
It didn't make any difference though. It's all about Krishna.
So,
Okay.
So if we stay together in about maybe 5 or 6 years, we'll be back at the 10th canto, and
Okay.
we would have approached it from the beginning in its completeness. So,
Okay. That sounds good.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Vanchakalpatarupya
Srila
Krishna.
Prabhupada.
My heartfelt
Vanchakalpatarupya
to everybody.
Krishna.
Patitanam
Pavanebhyo
Namo Namaha.
Vaishnavebhyo namo